Tonight has Montanans braced for their identification cards and driver's licenses to no longer be accepted by the federal government.
Montana remains one of 9 states either not complying or under review for not enacting the federal government's Real ID Act. Our Montana McLaughlin is live in our Missoula newsroom with the latest. Montana.
Steve, Laurel, the state's had several years to adopt the policy, but our extension deadline just ran out. Governor Bullock's asked the feds to formally recognize Montana IDs as a valid form of identification this week. But if the feds don't respond in the next 90 days, we might not be able to enter federal buildings like the federal courthouse. After 9/11, federal officials created the Real ID Act to protect American security. Its purpose was to create a national standard for state-issued ID cards. The identification cards valid under the Real ID Act would have to have a little star printed in the upper right-hand corner. But to get one of those, you'd also have to submit copies of private documents, like a birth certificate, to a national database. Governor Steve Bullock says that's an invasion of privacy.
At the end of those 90 days, it's quite possible that Montana's driver's license would no longer be sufficient in order to enter a federal building or a federal military installation in Montana.
And in 2018, Barnes says Montana licenses might not be recognized at airports. Leslie Quinones travels through the Missoula airport several times a year.
Well, I have a driver's license, which I use sometimes, but I have a passport card that goes along with my passport.
Leslie would be prepared with her passport if Montana licenses soon become invalid, but she knows passports don't always come easy.
Well, there's a lot of people who can't afford to get a passport, and so to be able to get a driver's license that has everything they need on it, it'll be a lot more helpful. I think that, trying to get through security, you have to have an ID and you have to have your boarding pass, and if your ID doesn't work, what do they use?
That's the big question.
Well, I think it'd be difficult for a lot of people to travel if you're going to go somewhere and your ID is not going to be valid on the other end. What are you going to do?
Patrick Williams says traveling's already challenging enough.
It's not fun anymore.
Only time will tell how Montanans like he and Leslie will cope if their IDs are no longer accepted. All of this even more difficult as in 2007, the Montana legislature decided that the state will not comply with this Real ID program. So now it's just a waiting game between the federal government and the state. We'll continue to follow what happens at the end of this 90-day period and let you know. Reporting live in Missoula, Montana McLaughlin, NBC Montana.
The Department of Homeland Security reports that 23 states and Washington, D.C. are fully compliant with the Real ID law. 18 states have been granted extensions, and Montana is one of 6 states currently under review. Washington, Minnesota, Missouri, and Oklahoma are listed as non-compliant. We have comprehensive coverage, including how the rules will impact you at NBCMontana.com.